Delay is the most blamed part of FC26, and almost everything the community believes about it is wrong. For years, any match that feels slow, sticky or unresponsive has been blamed on the servers. It's the explanation players lean on because nothing else has ever been offered. But delay has nothing to do with the servers. It comes from the one part of the game players never think about: the gameplay engine. The gameplay engine isn't a chip in your console. It isn't a physical component. It isn't a module or a hidden file. It's the rule system that decides what every player on the pitch is allowed to do, moment by moment. Your controller doesn't move players. It sends intentions. The engine decides the outcomes. And here's the part almost nobody in the community has ever understood. There isn't a separate engine running for every match. There is one engine serving everyone. Not 2 players, not 20, not a few thousand. On a typical evening, FC can have over 1 million players online across modes. During peak FUT windows, especially Weekend League, it's realistic that 200,000 to 350,000 matches are running at once. And they all rely on the same rule brain. If every match tried to run its own independent version of the game, nothing would align. Animations wouldn't match, collisions wouldn't sync, the ball would exist in 2 different places at the same time. Competitive integrity would collapse instantly. The entire ecosystem only works because there is one shared source of truth that every match must follow. So the engine isn't just deciding what your winger can do, it's resolving millions of decisions per second for hundreds of thousands of players simultaneously. Once you see that scale clearly, the next conclusion is unavoidable. Delay doesn't come from the servers. It comes from the behaviour of this shared system under pressure. When a single system is responsible for keeping hundreds of thousands of football matches coherent at the same time, it has one overriding priority: keep the entire global ecosystem stable. Not fast, not expressive, not maximally responsive. Stable. Because if stability goes, everything goes. Collisions desync, animations diverge, physics fork, and matches fall into separate realities. So when global match load surges, during Weekend League, big promos, Friday night peaks, the engine is forced into a trade-off: responsiveness or stability. Under heavy pressure, it always chooses stability. Because responsiveness is optional, stability is not. When load increases, the engine doesn't break, it doesn't glitch, it doesn't fail. It tightens. It reduces the range of behaviours it's willing to generate. It simplifies animation choices, it stretches timing windows, it lengthens recovery steps. It favours conservative movement patterns over expressive ones. Nothing in the match looks broken, but everything feels slower. The game responds a fraction later. Movement feels heavier, actions feel restricted. Your inputs hit a ceiling you can't see. Players call that delay, but the match is running perfectly. What you're feeling is a system under global load, not a network falling apart. Think of the gameplay engine like a computer. One program open and a couple of tabs, no problem. Open 10 programs and 30 tabs and the machine doesn't crash, it just becomes slower, more deliberate, more protective of itself. Not broken, overwhelmed. The gameplay engine behaves the same way. When the global load gets too high, it doesn't stop working, it stops taking risks. It chooses the safest animations, the simplest transitions, the most stable interactions. The match still functions, but the responsiveness collapses. And that feeling, that half-beat of hesitation before your commands take effect, is the engine protecting thousands of matches, including yours. Delay isn't the servers struggling. Delay is the engine staying in control. It is not a network issue. It is not packet loss. It is not lag. It is not stutter. It is the gameplay engine tightening to prevent instability across the global match ecosystem. This is why delay can happen even when your connection is flawless, your ping is low, your packet loss is 0, the match clock never stutters, and nothing rubber bands. The network is fine. The engine is overwhelmed. Once you see that delay comes from the engine tightening under global load, one thing becomes obvious. Weekend League is the engine's stress test. It compresses more matches into the same window than any other mode in FC. During a quiet weekday, you might see 150 to 250,000 players online across the entire game. During Weekend League, especially Friday evening through Sunday afternoon, global concurrency can push well over 1 million. From that, it's realistic that 200 to 350,000 matches are running at the same moment. Every one of them is calling back to the same rule brain. Every one increases total decision load. Every one pushes the system closer to tightening. The engine doesn't know you're 8 and 2. It doesn't know it's Weekend League. It doesn't care what division you're in. All it knows is that its global workload just spiked. So the behavioural shift is predictable. More safe animations, slower transitions, stretched timing, reduced responsiveness, conservative movement decisions, less expressive dribbling and tackling. The match still works, it just works within stricter boundaries. The reason the community stayed confused for so long is simple. Delay and lag feel similar, but they are fundamentally different. Lag is a network failure. You see it and you feel it physically. Stuttering, teleporting, rubber banding, frozen frames, inputs disappearing, and the match jumping ahead suddenly. Lag is the network failing to deliver a consistent stream of data. Everyone recognizes it instantly. Delay is not a network failure. The match doesn't jump, the clock doesn't freeze, animations don't glitch. The game runs normally, but the engine has reduced what it's willing to allow. Your inputs land a fraction later, not because packets are missing, but because the engine is choosing safer, simpler, slower paths. Delay is not the game breaking, delay is the game protecting itself. Conservative behaviours, simplified decisions, responsiveness sacrificed to prevent instability. The servers stay stable, the connection stays clean, and the match stays coherent. Only the engine contracts. This is why players misdiagnosed it for a decade. Lag looks broken. Delay feels restricted. Restricted feels like lag. So the wrong culprit got blamed. Once you understand that delay is the engine tightening under global decision load, the next point is unavoidable. This isn't something EA can patch away. Not with server upgrades, not with matchmaking tweaks, not with gameplay tuners, not with network engineering. Because delay isn't a bug, it isn't a glitch, it isn't a failure. It's the gameplay engine protecting competitive integrity. Under extreme load, Weekend League, peak hours, global promos, The system has to choose between maximum responsiveness or guaranteed stability. It cannot deliver both at scale, so it chooses stability. Every time. Because if it didn't, thousands of matches would desync instantly. Tackles wouldn't match, collisions would diverge, physics would split. The entire competitive ecosystem would collapse. That's the part players never realized. The game isn't failing, it's refusing. It's narrowing what it will allow, not because it wants to frustrate you, but because it cannot afford to behave more generously without risking structural collapse. To truly fix delay in the way players imagine, EA would need more than new servers or better netcode. They'd need a different foundation. Different animation architecture, different collision logic, different synchronization model, different division of responsibility between client, server and engine, a different approach to global load entirely. In other words, they would need a new game. Under the current architecture, delay isn't avoidable. It's the cost of stability at scale. This is the takeaway that matters. Delay isn't the connection failing. It isn't the servers collapsing. It isn't opponent Wi-Fi. It isn't packet loss. And it isn't random. Delay is the gameplay engine tightening to stay in control. It's predictable. It's structural. It's baked into how FC operates when hundreds of thousands of matches are active at once. Most players will never make this distinction. They'll carry on blaming the wrong thing because it's familiar and visible. The engine is invisible, and invisible systems rarely get credit or blame. But now you know the truth. The heaviness you feel isn't a mystery. It's not chaos, it's not superstition. It's not the servers ruining your match. It's the point where the engine reaches its operating ceiling and chooses stability over speed. That's the architecture, that's the behaviour, that's delay. If this is the first time you've heard delay explained through the actual structure of the game rather than community folklore, that's the point. The story was never built on facts. It was built on habit and repetition. Now you have the model the conversation has been missing for a decade. And once you see the game through this lens, every weekend league you've ever played finally makes sense. Thanks for watching.